Okay, so please say your name, where you are now, briefly who you are.
I'm Keren Gilboa. I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I'm in my home office.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And your last name sounds, I mean, I don't know nothing about, origins of last names, but it sounds nice. I don't know. It sounds kind of exotic, if I may say so. Nice. I like
Thank
it.
you. It's actually made up. So it's
Ah,
not my real last name. I mean, it is my real last name, but it is not my family's original last name. My
hmm.
father's parents were immigrants from Russia they immigrated to Israel in 1957. And so when they left Russia, they wanted to leave behind sort of their more Russian name and take on what they thought was a more Jewish or Hebrew sounding name. And so this was what they came up with, was Gilboa.
Okay. Wow. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And
So the name
mhm,
itself
mhm.
isn't made
Yeah.
up, but it is to our family. It's not our
Uh-huh.
original
Uh-huh.
last name.
But it means something, I mean, or is it completely made up? I mean,
No, it's the name of a mountain in
ah,
Israel that
wow.
has biblical origins. And there was like a test of one of the prophets was on this mountain.
Ah, you see? Okay. So well, I don't know about it, but maybe it sounded, I mean, I don't know, familiar. I could, yeah. I will check on that. Ah, interesting. So
There's,
this
there's
is,
also
mhm. Go on, go on.
Oh, no. There's also a flower, a Gilboa iris, that is like a very
Ah,
specific.
mm.
I think it only grows like in one region, maybe on the mountain. I'm not sure exactly, but yeah.
Wow, wow, what a story. Uh-huh. Um, hmm. uh, I mean, romantic. I don't know. For some reason, it feels. Yeah. So
Yeah. When you say romantic, it makes me think of The Sound of Music for some reason. Just like,
uh-huh,
yeah, an
uh,
expanse on a mountainside with
uh-huh,
greenery.
uh-huh, uh-huh. And yeah, and is it for this reason you told me before we started recording? You visited with your mom, Krakow and Warsaw because of those Jewish origins, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, not specific to my family, but it was an organized tour that was going through just sort of like yeah, places of sort of historical Jewish significance, both historically and obviously through World War II. So
And
yeah.
actually, Łódź is really like also the very, I mean, how to put it, a very significant place where lots of Jewish lived before the war, and with Germans, Russians, and Polish people. Yeah, so it was really a very multicultural city. Mm. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, maybe it sounds strange, maybe as a question, but do you have brothers and sisters who accompanied you, maybe in those visits? In Europe, Eastern Europe, or?
No, my brothers are much older than I am, like 10 and
Ah,
12 years older. And so I think at that time, it was kind of the perfect time for me. I had a summer break. I was in graduate school and I had a summer break between my first year and my second year. So it was like, and I wasn't married, I didn't have kids. I didn't even have my cats at that point. So I was really pretty free.
okay.
And so it was easy for me. My older brothers were, they had small kids.
Hmm.
It was a whole different thing for them. So yeah.
Okay. Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I
Uh,
was I was lucky that the timing kind of worked out perfectly for me.
hmm. 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 Yeah, I guess for I don't know if it still matters to you to trace back your family story, or yeah, stories on history of your family, but yeah, but it feels nice to speak about it. I don't know, somehow. Mm.
Yeah, I think you must be picking up on something. Yeah, because
Hmm.
it is very important. It
Uh-huh.
feels important to me. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
for
Uh-huh.
sure.
Hmm. Uh, hmm. Hmm. And I mean, because you mentioned that you have your own family now, so so I guess yeah. So I don't know. It's like part of your energy is like more to your family, to your new family, and to your future, not to the past that much.
Well, it's interesting because, um, you asked me to introduce myself and to give like just say like a little bit about who I am. And I kind of avoided it because
Uh-huh.
I noticed I tried to sort of like, I guess I'll just go into this because I was thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I mentioned to you, I get really nervous being recorded.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was like, okay, the thing I have to do to prepare for this is to just like watch as many interviews that have already, like as many of the videos that have already happened. And the first question that I tend to hear is, who are you? And I was thinking about how ungestalt it is to try to prepare to answer this question by watching other videos and to not like just sort of allow it to emerge as it is. Right, which is like much more sort of what's happening. Um, and I actually already even forgot your original question, which is like related to that, but that's sort of something I've been thinking about a lot, was just
Mm-hmm.
like, how do
Mm-hmm.
you prepare for a Gestalt interview? Which is like, you don't.
Uh, yeah, and
Oh, you were asking about my family.
yes.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I think like when I was thinking about who I am, that's what it was. Um, like the biggest sort of change for me is like realizing that I'm somebody's wife and I got married, and that was really surprising to me in a lot of ways. So that's sort of my and then yeah, that's my family now, is like my spouse.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that surprises me, and that's also sort of like you said, there's something in the present about it for
Uh-huh.
sure.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And do you also have kids? I mean, or did I misunderstand? Okay. Uh-huh.
No, I don't have kids. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I have the two cats. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Great. Uh-huh. Yeah. I mean, I appreciate what you said about, this comment about how it is to be interviewed in this Gestalt way, or whatever, how to prepare and not to prepare. Uh, but I feel very much, I mean, not prepared now with you from the very start. This is what I want to say. It's really like I am in this process with you, and it is, yeah, it is happening sometimes with people, and it's been happening with some people, but sometimes it's not that much emerging, if I may add that. So yeah, but what could you say about yourself? It's not an easy question, but how would you say about yourself, about your passions, about your values, what kind of human being you are?
I mean, very much, I mean, just to go with sort of a very trite answer, but just like very much a work in progress. I mean, I just graduated
Hmm.
3 weeks ago from the Gestalt Institute of Pittsburgh, from the 2-year training program. And so, coming into contact with people from the program, some of the faculty were saying, like, so what's it like to be a Gestalt therapist? And it's like, well, how did that happen? It's so fast. And it just feels like there's so much more to learn, So it was like, um, one of the things that really interested me, I told you sort of before we started recording that I listened to Eleanor Greenberg's interview, and it caught my eye as it came up because I'm reading her book right now. So there was sort of this confluent moment where I was like, oh, great, this is like all coming together in this really great way. But it's just that there's always so much more, right? It's like, okay, I'm a Gestalt therapist, but it doesn't fit because it's just there's so much more I want to learn. There's so much I want to read. Um, and so, yeah, that's one piece. I mean, the other piece is just sort of the process that happened through the program. Um, Yeah, my values, my goodness, they're so integrated. I think at this point, it's hard to really pick them apart, but I think it's always kind of recognizing how much more there is to learn and to know. And also just kind of trying to continuously learn. And I think, you know, the learning can be so humbling at times. And that, I think the humbling part can be really hard for me.
I
Because
didn't
it's,
notice. You seem to be a humble person at the same. Well, okay, sorry.
well, just, yeah, I mean, that's like, again, struggling with like my own introjects around just like, oh, I should be doing this better, or like I should be doing it the right way, or whatever that is. And so it's like when I find out I kind of took a misstep, then I have to kind of, you know, hold that. And that can be a little challenging. But always wanting to learn more and recognizing that that humbling piece is part of the learning. And that piece is really important. Yeah. I mean, your question was so big. What else? What else? That's sort of one piece. My
Yeah, sure.
passions, I mean.
Yeah, about passions.
So while I took up knitting like 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, and I just was like crazy about it. And it started to become this tradition that everywhere I travel, I try to find the local yarn shop and pick up some yarn. The exception was we just got back, my husband and I just got back from a vacation in Hawaii, and that was the only place in recent memory that I have not bought yarn because I haven't actually been knitting, but I do love it and I keep coming back to it. It's just, I don't know, there's something about the pandemic where you'd think this would be like the perfect time. But I just find that I think it's that there's always more piece, right? That I always want to come, I can kind of spend my time knitting, or I can spend my time reading. It's really hard to do both at the same time.
Sure.
So. But while I was in my program, we started this little social club with my cohort, and the name was co-created. We ended up calling it Knits Pearls.
Okay.
So yeah, that was a little club, a little knitting club.
I remember, about knitting. I went to this joint conference of AAGT at that moment and EAGT, European Association of Gestalt Therapy, and it was like in 2015 or 16 in Italy. And I went to this workshop, and there was an old lady sitting next to me. Before it started, I could see she, her knitting simply, and then later it revealed that this was Donna Orange. I don't know if you heard about her, but she is like, I don't know, she's a psychoanalyst, psychoanalyst, but she's also very much I don't know, she's like a Gestalt therapist as well, or at least very much she befriended, or I don't know how to call it, but by Gestalt therapist, and but she was like a small lady, humble, as you said before, knitting. And then when the workshop started, she was, from time to time speaking up and giving those wonderful comments, or, very deep ones. So, wow, I don't know. That was my kind of association, if you like. Yeah.
Well, I find that it really does tend to ground me in the present when I do it.
Wow.
Right? Because it's like something that you have to be very present with. Not always, like you can check out, but I do find that it can really pull me in to the here and now.
Wow. Okay.
So that's helpful. Yeah.
And say, the question we always ask also after the one about who you are is who shaped you and what shaped you the way you are, today or generally as a person.
Well, I mean, that's a harder one, and I think it's going to bring up some emotion in me.
Sure.
So, I mean, I feel shaped by everything. I mean, every experience has been really amazing, not always in a good way, but definitely impactful, right? And so every situation has sort of created this opportunity for adaptation, for change, for growth. I mean, even those sort of humbling moments, it's not that I look forward to them, but they give me opportunities, right? And I appreciate those, sometimes not in the moment, but usually in retrospect. But I mean, what you picked up on when I said, I think you must be picking up on something. I mean, certainly my family has shaped me. And the reason for my emotion is that I am still, so my father died when I was 23. And he had Alzheimer's. He was very young. And then I am still very much struggling with the loss of my mom, who died in February of 2020. So she had brain cancer, and it just like popped up one day, and then 5 months later she was gone.
I'm sorry.
And just like watching sort of the deterioration over time was really difficult. So I have been, I would say I was very strongly shaped by her and her influences. And so when you ask about values, I mean, she was just very generous, very thoughtful, very kind. And so those are values that I've really tried to emulate because they're what I really admired in her. Those are what I aspire to. Again, it's a work in progress. But I definitely feel shaped by, I think, what I appreciated most in her, which I now feel, I think, in my husband, is like feeling like I can be seen as a three-dimensional person, like not always good and certainly not always bad, but having bad moments and still feeling loved and okay and accepted.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. And what about your dad? What were the ways you learned from him? I mean,
he was different. He was very different from my mom. Yeah, I think part of it was the fact that he was an immigrant. Like, I think that was just sort of a different mentality. Because my mom was born in the US and my dad was not. But I don't know, he was different. That might be a harder question to answer without going into more therapeutic.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, yeah, sure.
But yeah, no, I mean, he certainly influenced. And I'll say, like, this piece is, I mean, he wasn't like a bad person or anything. I mean, he was a bad person, right? But he was, he just had a different mentality, but he very, very strongly emphasized learning and accomplishment. And he was very committed to his work. And, he had a very strong work ethic. And that was, I think, but for both of my parents, like their really amazing qualities are both sort of, they have these sides to them that are also maybe like things to be careful of, right? Like, because I find myself throwing myself into my work very strongly. Like, I'm seeing many, many clients, and it's just easy to do in the pandemic because everything's via telehealth. So it's just easy to just, okay, next session, right? And I don't think I'm the only one who's struggling with that.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
I do notice that is like that work ethic piece is like, it's great. Like I do feel very committed to my work, and also maybe am I taking on too much? And that's
Mm-hmm.
possible.
Sure. Mm-hmm. 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 Uh, and can you think of anything else, anyone else that shaped you? That
Well, I mean, I certainly feel like I'm continuing to be shaped by my experience at the Gestalt
mm-hmm.
Institute.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that my experiences, I think you're asking for specific people, um, or maybe not, I'm not sure. I should
Mm-hmm.
check out my projection.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people do mention specific people, but it's generally what if you want to add, you don't need to, dig deep there, but to find an answer, just whether you have any immediate, yeah, kind of association with someone or something, some processes.
My mom always used to say, because I was not always a very academic person, so she would always say that it seemed to her that I would be the most successful in classes or in, academics where I felt like I had and this is not a surprising thing for a Gestalt person. I would always seem to do the best when I felt like I had contact with the person
Mm.
teaching. So like I just think
Ah.
about sort of both really negative experiences that I had, especially in elementary school and middle school, but then also sort of these people along the way who seem to believe in me and really kind of give me that encouragement, just like throughout the whole process of my education.
Mm-hmm.
That feels important, that
Mm-hmm.
really shapes. And I think that same piece that I talked about is being seen as like three-dimensional, not
Mm-hmm.
neither good nor bad, just kind of
Uh-huh.
whole.
Uh-huh. Okay. Uh-huh. And yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the way you speak. I mean, and again, this honesty and openness. It really feels. I don't know. I am here with you. I am really like listening. Mm. And. Well, okay. So simply, I'm touched. I'm touched. This is what I'm trying to say. So,
I appreciate it. I feel it too. And that's why I'm smiling, not as a deflection, but as in I feel
mm,
the contact and it
mm,
feels warm.
mm,
It feels nice.
great. Yeah, great. And tell me, how did you come to Gestalt? When did your journey start?
Honestly, very much by accident.
Mhm. Hmm.
um, yeah, it just maybe it was a figure ground thing. I'm not sure. Just kind of emerged for me there. I was needing to get so I don't know how it works in Europe, but here, in order to renew our licenses, we need to get a certain number of continuing
Uh-huh.
education credits. And it was, I think, February, which is when all the cycle sort of starts over. And I was
Uh-huh.
desperately in need of an in-person training. And so I put on Facebook something like, who can recommend places where I can do an in-person training in Pittsburgh? And somebody just kind of and she had gone through the training. She put out Gestalt Institute of Pittsburgh. So I go on their website, they have a training coming up, and I'm like, great, that's the one I'll do. Turns out it's in the neighborhood that I live in, even more convenient. And
Uh-huh.
so I go to the training and it was about shame. And I was like, this is really interesting. How about this? And it just kind of developed, but that's not even really true, because the two therapists that I'd had for my own personal therapy, I went to graduate school in New York City, and I used to live in New York City for almost 11 years. And so my therapist in New York was Gestalt trained. And then so when I came to Pittsburgh, I was looking for someone who was Gestalt trained, although I have to say they were both Gestalt and EMDR
Mm-hmm.
trained. And so I was looking for someone who had that same sort of duality
Mm-hmm.
when I came to Pittsburgh. And so I found somebody here who did that. And it just everything kind of clicked into place once I went to the workshop, and I was like, oh yeah, this is the good stuff. And so I remember the director talking at the training saying something like, oh, and don't forget, we do a 2-year training program. So anyone who's interested, let me know. And it just had to marinate for a while. And then sort of actually, it was in April. I guess it would have been 2 like full calendar years ago. I was like, I think I'm going to do it. And I just kind of went with it. And it's been, it's really been incredible for me. I love the language. I love the concepts. It makes so much sense to me. It's like kind of solidifies a lot of ideas that I'd sort of had floating around that needed to kind of, I don't know, just be grounded in something that feels solid. So it's been, that's kind of how I came to it. It just kind of filtered in and felt right. And then I just went with it.
And if, and could you, I mean, also share with me and other people, of course, who are going to watch it. I mean, like what seemed to be the most challenging for you during your training?
I mean, I have to say the most challenging piece was that my mom got sick when I was 1 month into the program. And so trying to be a part of taking care of her and trying to get everything sort of settled and then just watching everything happen with her so quickly. That was the hardest piece. But it weirdly, like being in the program through all of that, I think was extremely helpful as well. It just really gave me a huge sense of support between the amazing faculty and my cohort. It was, but it was really challenging. And I think it's really hard to do a lot of introspection when you're dealing with sort of an active trauma. When I was dealing with an active trauma, it made it really hard to kind of introspect. But then I think just the weird sort of all the downtime, which is also sort of a trauma time of the pandemic, just kind of allowed me to really, again, really ground down, because I have a tendency to just move from one thing to the next thing, and not in terms of like leaving things behind, but just taking on and taking on. I mean, obviously there's a pattern here. But I have a tendency to just kind of be like, oh yeah, that sounds good. Like we'll do that too.
I know. I can relate to that.
So I think that piece of it, yeah, that piece of it was really helpful. So it was like most challenging, but then also really helpful in a weird way, because I think there was a tremendous amount of growth from when I sort of was able to move from like my first year of the program to the second year of the program, in that just really being able to sit with all of that stuff, all of the stuff that was coming up for me, the trauma, the processing, the grief, the loss. And what we talked about a lot, because it's very present for me or very figural for me, is endings. And it was just like, ending the program, ending the first year, ending that part of my relationship with my mom, all of that. But I'm not sure if that even answers your question, because I don't know if you meant conceptually or just in general. What was the most challenging piece?
No, just in general. Yeah.
I mean, there were certainly technological challenges too, going from being in a room full of people to all of a sudden seeing, like 16 tiles or 18 tiles on a screen.
Right.
That felt really challenging, because, contact, as you may have noticed, is very important to me.
Yeah.
And feeling like, we're moving into a place of no contact felt very, very difficult. Felt, I guess, in some ways like an ending, but also, we ended up making it work for us in the sense of, Zoom also became a very contactful place for our cohort. And I find it actually surprisingly contactful with my clients. I didn't think it would work, and somehow it really does. It really surprises me that the majority of my clients I've never met in person. I've never sat in a room with them.
And after this time, I mean, after this training, I mean, do you think that Gestalt, I mean, this Gestalt training specifically, or maybe also your therapy, I don't know, but how it influenced you? I mean, have you become another person, or really, I mean, I don't know how to put it, but was it a radical change, or just, yeah?
It's funny. I think in some ways, very much yes. But the radical piece is like, again, it's just so much of honoring the process, because I don't think I am who I was when I first started, but I also don't think I'm so different, right? There's parts of me, I think, that I have much better awareness about. And I think that, I think the training program was funny, because I heard some feedback that it was kind of murky. Like, is it professional or is it personal? And for me, that murkiness really worked, because I think helping me understand myself and have greater awareness of certain parts of myself really helps me with my clients, right? And also the pieces of just professional development within this program has really helped me with my clients as well. So it's really been kind of a twofold boon for me. But I do think that there's pieces of me that feel very radically different. Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, having these concepts that are kind of floating around in the ether and giving them sort of some solid grounding, again, to use that word, is just really, it changes a lot. It changes a lot I changed a lot with that, knowing that that's accessible to me, to be like, these aren't just sort of like strange ideas. They make sense. They have a framework.
And I mean, you are now, as you said, working, as I understood, working a lot. But are you thinking of, I don't know, are you thinking of continuing your Gestalt training, Gestalt education? I wonder, or.
Absolutely, as much as I can. I mean, I'm getting Gestalt supervision, which I find immensely helpful, because again, it just kind of helps me again bring sort of these free-floating thoughts and fit them into sort of categories, but also there's like so much flexibility in these categories. That's the other piece that I love, is it doesn't have to be just sort of a box or one way or the other way, right? It's just kind of like just is. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is why I find it funny to say like, oh, okay, well now I'm a Gestalt therapist, because it's just, there's so much more to learn, to interact with, to take in, really. And that's what I want, is to really be able to take it in.
And are there any, I mean, do you have any specific interests now in Gestalt theory, Gestalt practice? Now when you're working with your clients, or maybe what you want to learn more about? I wonder.
I think I'm still waiting for that to emerge. Because I think I'm still working on my ending with the training, right? Like, so I think just kind of being in that place of kind of, I mean, not that the training is ever really over, right? And I know that our institute offers an advanced training year, which I'm planning on doing, but I think just kind of continuing to work on integrating all the concepts, really being comfortable and familiar with it. And I think that's where it will start to emerge, like sort of where I want to really throw my focus on next.
Well, I like that you are waiting, like you are not, deciding already, but like, it's wow. Yeah, I'm sometimes too impatient, but well, the life itself, I mean, teaches me that everything comes in the right moment, and then everything clicks into place.
Well, I think it's how it worked out for me with this program, right? Like it just kind of had to filter in,
Mhm,
and then when it was ready to kind of emerge, there it was, and it
mhm,
all worked out.
mhm.
So I think that's something that I noticed that's a little different in myself is this trusting of the process
Uh-huh,
of
yeah.
knowing like it'll emerge when it's ready. Like I'll know when
Uh-huh.
it's time to kind of shift my focus and take it in. Because even right now, I'm reading about, these personality adaptations, but that's like one piece. It's just something I want to get better at.
Mhm,
And there's like all these other pieces that I want to know more about. But
mhm,
specializing or like focusing, we'll just see where
mhm,
things go.
mhm, 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 mhm. Yeah, it's an exciting place actually to be in. Uh, 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 exactly. If it feels like, being this young adult, as you call it in English, I guess, oh, this is life ahead of me, all new things, and let's see what I like or I don't like. I don't know. Yeah, there's something,
It very
yeah.
much, it very much feels that way, right? Because it's for me, I mean, what you're saying makes so much sense because it just feels like even though I've been in the career of being a therapist or being in mental health for
Uh-huh.
10 years, it's
Mm-hmm.
like every step feels like the beginning of some kind of new career, and just seeing how it opens up in front is very
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Sometimes it
Mm-hmm.
can feel very scary. There's a lot of unknowns or uncertainty. Um,
Mm.
but in this moment, more than the anxiety, I feel the excitement.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
because yeah, you haven't mentioned that you are so experienced in mental health, but I sort of kind of assumed this, and at the same time, I I feel this freshness, kind of spring mood, whatever spring like season of the year, and yeah, it feels nice. Hmm. So. Hmm. So I
And we're
mean,
taking that in from the outside too, I think, just because I have the windows open and there's that spring breeze coming in. It feels
good,
I feel
great.
very aware of it at this moment.
Uh,
Yeah.
uh. So I guess we are at the end here. I don't know if you wanted to add anything. Is there anything I haven't asked you about and you wanted to say maybe, or how does it feel for you?
It feels really, I feel really good. I want to say thank you for just allowing the contact to happen and for making this feel so organic and noticing sort of helping me when you were asking about my father, like it's interesting because I realized, I'm talking to a therapist. It seems like it'd be so easy to just go in and then trying to kind of pull back to notice that boundary of, okay,
Uh-huh,
wait, we're not in
uh-huh,
therapy. We're just
uh,
talking.
mm,
No, but I also appreciate that is that there was something so inviting about you,
uh-huh,
about me wanting to share with you.
mm,
Um, so I want to appreciate that. I appreciate that you're able to sort of give of yourself in here, and that I feel like this was very much a shared experience, and I
mhm,
really
mhm.
appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I feel this as a shared experience as well, and it's been. I mean, yeah. Um, I don't know. It reminds me again why I like those interviews. Why I keep doing it, and it's been a while now that I haven't felt it so yeah strongly. So thank you. Thank you very much. And yeah, and it feels like you may even one day come to Poland and come to Łódź, actually, because you've been there already. So it's really like, yeah, I don't know, realistic. This is what I want to say.
I would like that a lot. That sounds like a lot of fun.
So good luck with your plans, or with your no plans, but whatever comes, whatever emerges. And thank you for today. I will send you all those things I mentioned before.
Perfect.
Yeah, have a good day there.
You have a good evening.
Yeah. Bye bye. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you.